first box is going to be fat. So we've got fat right here, and your body can store a lot of dietary fat, okay, as well as your body fat. So you've got these little lumps of fat all throughout your body. And the way I like to have people think about that as well is each one of those fats or areas of stored fat is like a battery. If you are overdoing that dietary fat, this is kind of where the keto people get excited, is that if you are overdoing the body or the dietary fat, it's not immediately going into stored body fat. That box over here for stored or for dietary fat is huge. You can actually take in a lot more dietary fat than you think. You will get diarrhea before you overdo the dietary fat, which then turns into body fat. So if it comes down to you feeling hungry and wanting to go grab some extra protein or grab some extra carbohydrates, the olive oil that you could throw on a salad could give you the extra energy that you need to prevent those cravings from happening in the first place. So that's kind of a long explanation to a short question, but get a little bit more fat in your diet to prevent the hungers, cut down on the protein, and then watch those carbs pretty closely. Most people get way too many carbs. In the previous video I was talking about with sugar, I talked about how the average American's getting somewhere between 300 to 400 grams of carbohydrates per day. If you are following keto, it wants you to get less than 50 grams of carbs per day, which for some people can be a single meal, and it takes practice. So my biggest suggestion for being successful with something like a low carb diet is to monitor with some sort of app. If you have an electronic app, I've got a couple recommendations as far as like MyFitnessPal is really good about tracking carbs. There's a app that you can get off of the Google Play Store and off of the Apple App Store, whatever you Apple people call it. It's called My Carb Manager. Woohoo! It's a really useful app that you can input your own information. You can set your macros as to what your goals are for the day, and you can essentially track your intake, and you don't have to do any of the math yourself. But maybe give it a shot. Just track what a normal day looks like for yourself and give yourself a chance to kind of start cutting back in that department if your goal is fat loss. If you don't have fat loss as a goal, then I just spent a lot of time talking for nothing. But if you do ever want to lean out, trim up, anything like that, one of the most important suggestions I have is to start directing your attention more towards this little box over here and try not to let it overflow. And so in that stored fat battery, there's a number of ways that we can tap into it. And the primary way of tapping into that body fat is to cut off what is pumping energy into it, meaning changing the diet into a fat burning type of diet. This is where low carb and keto kind of shine, is that when you take out the carbohydrates, that takes out an integral piece that causes fat storage, because excess carb intake is what ultimately will lead to fat storage. Now, excess anything intake will lead to fat storage. The American diet doesn't typically emphasize getting your healthy oils in every day. And when I say dietary fat, I am leaning more towards those healthy oils. Olive oil, avocado oil. If you are doing some sort of butter, use a grass-fed butter. Kerrygold is probably the best butter I've ever had in my life. Utilizing good healthy fats in your diet helps to prevent hunger when you're trying to lose weight. Dietary fat does not equal body fat. One more time. Dietary fat does not equal body fat. You have to work really hard to fill this box up before it starts turning into body fat. So, get a little bit more fat in the diet, you'll kind of cut back on that hunger. A lot of folks that talk about getting into the fat burn or the state of fat burn with exercise, you're going to hit a certain threshold of how much body fat you're burning to continue to perform the same function that you were just doing. So running longer, more so cardiovascular type activities will be very inclusive of a higher fat intake as well as a higher fat usage from stored body fat.